Spotting danger sooner. A new way to understand and prevent suicide risk. Suicide is still a major public health problem. Even though rates have fallen in some places, it remains a leading cause of death, especially among young people. In countries like the United States, the rates are actually rising. Traditional risk factors such as mental illness or past attempts show who might be at long-term risk. But they do not tell us when someone is in immediate danger. Older crisis theories describe emotional and thinking changes before an attempt, but lack clear diagnostic rules. To improve this, researchers have suggested 2 suicide-specific syndromes: acute suicidal affective disturbance, ASAD, and suicidal crisis syndrome, SCS. These syndromes focus on the fast, intense changes that happen in the hours or days before a suicide attempt. The good news is that we can now develop tools to detect these early warning signs. Why do we need new tools? Haven't we already got some? It's true that we already have tools, but most of them focus on long-term risk, like having depression or a past suicide attempt. These can show who might be at risk in general, but they don't tell us when someone is in danger right now. Many people experience sudden changes in their feelings and thinking just before a suicide attempt, and older tools often miss these fast shifts. The new syndromes and their tools focus on these short-term warning signs. They can help us spot danger earlier, understand how someone feels in the moment, and measure this in clear, standardized ways. This makes it easier to assess risk accurately, document it properly, and act quickly when needed. It also helps researchers study suicidal crises because the categories are clearer. In short, clearer definitions lead to better identification, and better identification leads to better prevention. What did the researchers do? The authors looked at 2 new suicide-related syndromes, ASAD and SCS, older ideas about suicidal crises, and a diagnosis in the DSM-5, the main manual doctors use for mental health conditions. They compared these ideas to see what is new, what is similar, and how they fit together. They also examined how these syndromes describe the fast emotional thinking and behavior changes that can lead to suicidal actions, and why this might help experts assess risk more accurately than traditional long-term risk factors. To measure ASAD, they described a questionnaire called the ASADI-L, which asks about things like sudden rises in suicidal intent, feeling cut off from others, strong self-hatred, and agitation or trouble sleeping. This helps show how quickly these feelings appear and how intense they are. To measure SCS, they explained the Suicide Crisis Inventory, SCI, which looks at feeling trapped, sudden waves of fear or emotional pain, racing thoughts, loss of control, and withdrawing from others. The paper notes that the SCI can sometimes predict suicidal behavior better than older tools, especially when someone is leaving hospital. By showing these tools, the authors argue that ASAD and SCS are not just ideas. They can be measured in clear, structured ways that help doctors understand someone's immediate risk much more accurately. How did they do this? They read and summarized many studies that look at how valuable these constructs are, empirical validation studies. They explained the symptoms of each syndrome. Next, they looked at tools that help measure these symptoms, like questionnaires, and how well these predict suicidal behavior. And finally, they compared everything to older crisis models. They did not run a new experiment. The paper is a conceptual review, which means they put many ideas together and explained how everything fits. What did they find out? The authors found that ASAD and SCS match what many people experience just before a suicide attempt. These syndromes capture the fast, intense changes in feelings, thinking, and behavior that older tools often overlook. Their measurement tools, like the ASADI-L and SCI, can detect these changes more clearly and reliably than long-term risk factors. They also fit with older crisis theories but add clearer criteria, helping doctors understand a person's immediate state, not just their general risk. Why does this matter? Recognizing these syndromes could be an important turning point in preventing suicide. Because they have clear diagnostic criteria and proper measurement tools, doctors can now see not just whether someone is generally at risk, but whether they are actually in a suicidal crisis right now. This can save lives by allowing help to come earlier and in a more focused way. These tools can also support safer decisions in hospitals. For example, someone might seem low risk using older methods, but score very high on the Suicide Crisis Inventory, SCI. This would warn doctors that the person is not safe to leave hospital yet, or that they need closer follow-up. This reduces danger for the patient and also lowers legal risk for the healthcare team. Identifying suicide-specific syndromes also pushes researchers to look more closely at what is happening in the brain and mind during a suicidal crisis. This includes studying areas like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which help control emotions, problem-solving, and fear. By focusing on these fast, intense changes, future treatments may become more targeted, using things like medication or brain stimulation to reduce crisis symptoms quickly. So what now? The paper has some strong points. It brings together new research from psychology, psychiatry, and neuroscience, giving a clear picture of how different fields are trying to understand suicidal crises. It explains the diagnostic criteria for ASAD and SCS very clearly, which helps everyone use the same language. It also includes studies showing that these syndromes may predict suicide risk well, and it links the new ideas to older crisis theories, so readers can see how they fit into the bigger story. Altogether, the paper shows why these syndromes could be important for early intervention and hospital decisions. But there are limitations too. These syndromes are still very new, and we need much more evidence to know how reliable they are. Many of the studies so far are based on small or specific groups, which means the results may not apply everywhere. The paper is also a review, not new research, so it cannot prove anything on its own. There is also overlap between ASAD, SCS, and older crisis models, making it unclear whether they are really new or just new versions of old ideas. And finally, we still don't know whether ASAD and SCS are really separate from each other or from other mental health conditions, which is something future research needs to explore. Let's see what future research brings.